The Unitarian preacher William Ellery Channing was a very close friend of Henry David Thoreau. The two often took walks in the woods together. They admired the grandeur of nature together, and they wrote many letters to one another. And it was in one of those letters that Channing suggested to Thoreau that he spend a significant amount of time in the woods alone. "Build yourself a hut," Channing wrote to Thoreau. "I see no other alternative, no other hope for you." And it was those words that inspired Thoreau to spend 2 years, 2 months, and 2 days living in a cabin that he built at Walden Pond on a piece of property in Concord, Massachusetts that was owned by his friend and mentor, Ralph Waldo Emerson. And Thoreau wrote his famous book, Walden, as a reflection upon the 2 years that he spent alone in the woods. As he very famously wrote in Walden, "I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately, to confront only the essential facts of life and to see if I could not learn what life had to teach. When I came to die, I did not want to discover that I had not lived. And if life proved to be mean, then to get the whole and genuine meanness of it. Or if life proved to be sublime, to know it by experience. I wanted to be able to give a true account of life." Thoreau knew that the only way he would ever be able to truly understand life would be if he spent a significant amount of time in nature, which of course is precisely what he did. And I don't know whether either William Ellery Channing or Henry David Thoreau knew anything about Sukkot, but they may be the two greatest expositors of the essence of Sukkot to ever live. Channing said to Thoreau, "Build yourself a hut," and Thoreau built himself a hut, and he lived in that hut for over 2 years, exposing himself to the elements, embracing the fragility of life, and at the end of it all, coming to a much greater and deeper understanding of life itself. Is that not Sukkot? That's exactly what we do on this Chag. As the Torah commands us, "Besukkot teshvu shivat yamim," for 7 days you shall dwell in Sukkot. And all of our meals are supposed to be eaten in the sukkah, and some people even sleep in the sukkah. I used to love to do that with my brother when I was growing up. For 7 days, we move our lives into our Sukkot. And when we are in a sukkah, we're vulnerable. We're completely exposed to the elements. We are at the mercy of Mother Nature. Or, to frame it slightly differently, Sukkot gives us the opportunity to reconnect with and immerse ourselves in the natural world without material possessions, without any of the creature comforts that we have come to be so reliant upon, without even a solid roof over our heads. As Thoreau might put it, we go out to our Sukkot because we wish to live deliberately, to confront only the essential facts of life. And it's not only good to reconnect with nature, it's imperative for us to reconnect with nature. In 1850, the great American landscape architect Frederick Olmsted stepped off a ship in Liverpool, England, and he laid eyes upon Birkenhead Park for the very first time. I've never been there, but my parents were there this summer. They said it's beautiful. And seeing that park was a revelation for Olmsted. It was a beautiful green oasis in the middle of a bustling, crowded city. A public park that was available and accessible to anyone and everyone, from the wealthiest British aristocrat to the average day laborer. A true people's garden. And Olmsted knew immediately that that was what he wanted to create in New York. And that's exactly what he did when he designed Central Park. And by the way, maybe that's why John Lennon chose to live in the Dakota on 72nd Street, because he grew up in Liverpool, not far from Birkenhead Park, and in the final years of his life, he lived in an apartment overlooking Central Park. City dwellers, Olmsted wrote in the 1850s, suffer from a range of afflictions such as nervous tension, anxiety, a hasteful disposition, impatience, and irritability. And if that was true in the 1850s, it is exponentially more true today. But Olmsted believed that there was a solution for the anxiety and the tension that inevitably comes to define an overcrowded, busy city. Green space. As Olmsted wrote, beautiful natural scenery employs the mind without fatigue, yet exercises it, tranquilizes the mind, yet enlivens it, and gives refreshing rest and reinvigoration to the whole system. And I know exactly what Olmsted means by that, as I imagine so many of you here do. When I lived in Manhattan and I needed some space from the teeming throngs of people, a walk through the oasis of Central Park was always so refreshing and reinvigorating and rejuvenating. And whenever I need a break now, I go on a hike with my dog, or I take a walk around the reservoir at the South Mountain Reservation. And when I do those things, I feel genuinely refreshed and renewed, because we need nature. We need to be outside. We need exposure to the elements. And I think that, of course, is the most important and fundamental lesson of Sukkot. When the great 19th century German rabbi Samson Raphael Hirsch was on his deathbed, he turned to his disciples and he said, "You must take me to Switzerland right now. Today, I got to go to Switzerland." "Rabbi," they said, "with all due respect, we can't take you to Switzerland. You're on your deathbed. You're far too sick. You're too weak. You'll never, ever survive that trip." To which he replied, "My dear students, very soon I'm going to meet the Creator face to face, and He's going to ask me many questions. And what am I going to say to God when He says, 'Nu, Shimshon, what'd you think of the Alps?'" If Sukkot teaches us nothing else, it's that we should not live our lives indoors. Samson Raphael Hirsch came to that realization on his deathbed, but we shouldn't wait that long. We have an obligation to be outside under the stars for at least 1 week every year, but of course it should really be so much more than that. As Sukkot comes to a close, take its lessons with you into this new year. Try to find the time, at least once a week, to go on a hike, to walk around the reservoir, even just to spend a few minutes here in our beautiful Holocaust garden at Temple Beth Shalom. As Thoreau might put it, build yourself a hut, live deliberately, and see if you cannot learn what life has to teach. Shabbat Shalom.